Hi, it's Ed here. There was a question recently in the Audio Bus forum about using guitars on iOS and, you know, guitars that might be comparable to Steel Guitar Pro from Yonac. So I figured I'd give it a shot and see what I could come up with. I don't have extensive research on this, but I've tried a few things here and there. So figured I'd share what I just recently tried. Results are not bad. But certainly, I'm sure there's some better ways to do this, but let's take a look. So this what I came up with using some SoundFonts. I'll put a link to the site. There's a site called SoundFonts for You. It's got some pretty nice piano sound fonts, but also has some general sound fonts and some other instruments like guitar, things like that. I'm sure there's tons out there, but that's kind of one that I go to frequently for sound fonts. Anyway, what I got here in AUM as a setup, I've got MIDI Strummer. I got two MIDI player instruments here. I got BS16i. I've got KQ Sampe. I got Steel Guitar Pro here, just kind of as a comparison for reference. Over here in this MIDI column, I've got some MIDI controllers. I'm not going to use Scalar, but you could use Scalar for some of this. And I got AU keys from Sequence. I got progressions, which will play sequences. I got Velocity keyboard, and I've got KB1. Over here, I got Animu because actually it does a pretty nice job of providing some MIDI effects, so you can play your notes through that, change the preset, and it'll actually change the expression and give you a little variation in your guitar sounds. You can do that with some of these keyboard controllers, but there's some pretty interesting combos you can come up with on Animu. Anyway, let's get straight to it. Let's take a sample. For example, I got a jazz guitar 2 here. There's a set of guitars called Best of Guitars from that site I mentioned. There's quite a few in here. Nylon, steel, jazz. Some of them are pretty good. 12-string chorus, clean. Overdrive. The overdrive and distortion, they're really not usable. But some of these are not too bad. So anyway, let's take a listen here. What we have right now is Jazz Guitar 2. Let's just pop in here and see what that sounds like on Sequence AU keys here. So I don't have the velocity control right now on the vertical, but that gives you an idea of a little of what it sounds like. Velocity keyboard, now this does have some velocity control built in, and you can move your finger left and right if you want to control the expression. So you can do something like this. You got to be careful with the expression. A little expression goes a long way. KB1, here's a sample with that. And these all sound slightly different. The sound settings are not exactly the same, even the defaults. So not too bad, actually. And now if we go to Animu, it gets a little different. You can change these presets up here. Some of them are workable, some of them are just not going to work at all with these SoundFont guitars. But this particular one is sort of in between. And there's some velocity control on here, but it's pretty abrupt. Not very granular. I think that's just the properties of the sound font and the limitations of the players. So that'll give you an idea of what that sounds like. Now there's one in particular that I like quite a bit, and it's in this collection called Nylon and Steel Guitars. There's one here called Nylon Pro No Frets. It's got a pretty nice sound to my ears. So if we use something like MIDI Strummer, for example, we can actually see what it sounds like if we strum or do an ARP on here. These are the default settings along the bottom, the velocity and ARP speed and so forth. You could tweak those to get the sound to be a little different and maybe a little better than what I've got. I figured I would just go with the defaults, but let's just take a listen to C minor, for example. Do this little ARP. So you can also do strum. You can also strum by swiping your finger across, which you can't see here obviously, but that's how that works. So that sounds pretty good, I'd say. I don't want to make this video too long, but if anyone's interested in some of the other sounds that are available, just leave a comment. Between the two of these, I would say these two players here, I got BS16i. Here you can see the default settings that I've got right here. It's pretty much out of the box. Although this cutoff and Q values seem to be affected by Animoog and maybe some of the others. It sends some MIDI and changes the settings, and so those aren't actually the default. But KQ Sampe, we'll take a quick look at this. If we go here and look at the settings, and you can see the settings here for this particular guitar. You can change a lot of these. There's quite a few features in here. There's all sorts of MIDI features, MIDI mapping. There's parameters you can change in here and all sorts of things. And I would say between the two, I think I like KQ Sampe for just the ability of tweaking things, and it just tends to sound a little better than the BS16 out of the box. I'm sure they're probably pretty comparable. I probably could tweak a few things to make them sound equal, but just from my limited use of it, I kind of like it, and it's a pretty well supported app too. Anyway, that's about it. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks a lot.